What will the world be like in 10, 20, or 50 years? Here at the American Alliance of Museums, we explore the cultural, economic, environmental, and technological trends that shape the future. This year, in TrendsWatch 2019, the Alliance's Center for the Future of Museums explores 5 forces shaping the world and how museums can respond to those trends. The first of these is a precipitous decline in trust, as we become confused about whether the news we consume is true or false. Right now, trust in government, media, academia, industry, even nonprofits, is at an all-time low. People have locked themselves into digital and social echo chambers where they only hear news and opinion that already confirms what they believe to be true. Anything that contradicts those beliefs is likely to be labeled fake news and dismissed out of hand. And that news may actually be fake, as technology makes it easier to manipulate opinion and falsify the records of what we see and hear. But even as trust declines, museums remain among the most trusted sources of information. How can we use that trust as a force for good? How can museums help society rebuild a common framework for telling fact from fiction? Our technology topic this year is blockchain. Our news feeds are bursting with headlines about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. What the heck are these things and why should museums care? The underlying technology, blockchain, has been around for over a decade. Fundamentally, it's a way of recording digital transfers of things, digital or physical, in a way that's particularly secure and accessible. What makes museums perk up and pay attention? Artists are beginning to use blockchain to register and monetize their work. Auction houses are beginning to use blockchain to record sales. Museums are just beginning to see what they can use blockchain for, including tracking provenance and recording and sharing data. The next topic is decolonization. There are signs that humanity is at last making some progress in breaking the cycle of colonial violence and redressing historic wrongs. We've made progress in dismantling political colonialism. Countries from South Africa to South Korea have created truth and reconciliation commissions to lay the groundwork for restorative justice. In Canada, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission confronted the legacy of violence of the residential school systems that separated thousands of Indigenous children from their families and tried to take their culture away from them. But many nations still impose internal colonialism on Indigenous people on settled lands. What is the next stage in our evolution? What are the steps that we will take to decolonize our government, our culture, and our institutions? Museums have a responsibility to help society address this legacy of damage by re-examining our own collections, our culture, and our power structures. Our next focus is homelessness and housing insecurity. Adequate housing is a fundamental human right, yet over 1.6 billion people, that's 20% of the world's population, lack secure housing, and over 150 million people are homeless. Even in wealthy, stable nations like the United States and the United Kingdom, housing insecurity is rising in tandem with wealth inequality. And housing insecurity and homelessness are classic wicked problems, complex, intertwined, and entrenched with other critical problems like health, education, employment, and social and economic mobility. Solving housing insecurity and homelessness will require government, industry, nonprofits, and philanthropy to rethink their roles and how they work together. How can museums be a bigger part of the solution? And while we work together to solve this wicked problem, how can we ensure that people experiencing housing insecurity can exercise their social and cultural rights? Next up, self-care. Fighting to make the world a better place is often exhausting, debilitating, and traumatic. Self-care, taking action to preserve or improve one's own health, has long been practiced by social activists as a way of maintaining their bodies and soul. The American Psychiatric Association has documented rising levels of anxiety in the American public. 40% of us feel more anxious than we did last year. And in the face of rising stress and stretched resources, it's more important than ever for individuals and institutions to recognize the need for setting aside time and resources for restorative practice. If we treat self-care as an individual responsibility, there's a danger it will just become another source of stress, another item on a checklist of things we feel we ought to do. We need to be careful that we don't use successful self-care as an excuse not to change the systems that cause harm. How can museum workers employ self-care to cultivate the resilience they need to do their work? And how can museums change their own organizational culture and practice to promote the well-being of their staff? TrendsWatch explores what each of these topics means for society and for museums, and how museums can rise to the challenges they present. So go, download, read, share, discuss, and decide what you can do to build a better future for the world.